that's not good. Dude, Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I love Lord of the Rings. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, so I found out.
So you want to talk about like the complex dualistic nature between Gollum and Smeagol and how Tolkien wrapped that together so beautifully so that we, the reader, could understand it better?
I mean, yeah, that's great, but...
Oh, so you want to talk about the relationship between Sam and Frodo as they travel on their way to Mordor and how that friendship changes and morphs into Sam really taking care of Frodo at the end and making sure that he gets the ring to Mordor safely?
I mean, yeah, that's like one of my favorite characters, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about.
Oh, okay, so you wanted to talk about like how Aragorn completely reclaims his birthright and like rebuilds his entire kingdom and how that's one of the best plots in the entire story?
Yeah, great plot line, but seriously.
Okay, so you wanted to talk about how like how Gandalf and the other wizards are really Maia and they came back from the Undying Lands to help make sure that Middle-earth was okay and it's barely talked about in the movies at all?
Dude, seriously.
Oh, I know you. You wanted to talk about the dwarves.
Okay, enough. I have the one ring right here.
Nah, dude, I don't believe you at all.
Oh, you want me to prove it? All right, watch this.
Dude! What? Okay, that's good proof.
Yeah, I know. It's totally awesome.
Alright, I concede. I'll go with you. You just gotta give me a few minutes to get ready.
Yeah, that's all right. I need to get a few things ready anyways.
Okay, now before we go off on an adventure, I need to cover a few things from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit have become a cultural phenomena of creativity. There's worlds and languages and this huge following, and J.R.R. Tolkien has given us some of the best writing and, well, I mean, 6 endearing films to go along with that. I mean, incredible. Tolkien served in the trenches of World War I, which is where many of his ideas for Middle-earth came to mind, and he started to develop the world in his spare time. Notably, he did serve in the Battle of the Somme, which is one of the deadliest battles of World War I. Kind of incredible that he came back from that, and when he came back to England, he started writing all of this down and mapping out the world that he had created while he was away. Now, as Tolkien's worlds developed, the languages were brought in and we have more and more story to go off of in history. The Hobbit starts to emerge for him. Now, he loved English and studied it deeply, and he loved ancient myth, and so the stories of the Von Saga and Beowulf inspired him to enjoy and develop these worlds, and he noticed that, good lambus bread, England didn't really have any ancient stories of its own. So he went about creating that, and I mean, who better to do that than the guy that's known as the Professor, someone that developed their own language at the age of 7. Now, at Oxford, there was a group of professors that met and they shared stories that they found, and they were called the Inkling. And they encouraged Tolkien to write down his thoughts and his stories, and this led to Tolkien in his free time writing down his plot for The Hobbit and developing the world even more. Now, he didn't have much free time admittedly, so it took him a long time, but it's also said that the first line of The Hobbit was written on a student's exam paper and sat there for years as he developed this story. Eventually, in 1937, Tolkien did get that book published, The Hobbit, which is so endearing and loved by many. But soon after, World War II began and his son, Christopher Tolkien, went off to fight. This put a damper on his production of ideas, and he had to mail parts of the book to his son and his old friend C.S. Lewis. Now, they helped him compile his ideas and write this story that ended up being a 6-part novel that was later called The Lord of the Rings. Now, after World War II, Tolkien was ready to publish his novel, but there were a couple of issues. One, after World War II, there was a huge paper shortage, and 2, his publishing company, Allen and Unwin, didn't want to publish the Lord of the Rings novel and the Silmarillion at the same time. So Tolkien went to another publisher and they told him that the books need to go severe undercutting. And he didn't want that. So Tolkien went back to Allen and Unwin and said he was willing to compromise to get the books published. They agreed to publish The Lord of the Rings, but it was going to be split up into 3 books: The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. Now, the history of these books is so rich and deep, I could probably talk for hours on them, but here's how successful they really are. The Lord of the Rings series have sold over 150 million novels, which, excluding sacred texts, makes them the 3rd most popular series in the world. You know, right after Don Quixote and A Tale of Two Cities, both of which have had at least 100 years head start on The Lord of the Rings. Now, the creation of these novels has been truly impactful. I mean, we have such things as D&D and many other fantastical stories because of them. The impact on the geek world and fantasy has truly been incalculable, and who would know where we really would be without them? Now, the Lord of the Rings movies have made just shy of $3 billion, as well as the Hobbit movies. That is a grand total of $6 billion, a large sum of money, and I think we can expect that to grow, as Amazon has just bought for $250 million the rights to produce Lord of the Rings content. Now, they've agreed to 5 seasons of this TV show that they're going to produce, and we know that the first season's under production, and they've already re-signed actors for the 2nd season. Now, to summarize all of this, there is truly an incredible amount of content out there, and it would be impossible to cover that in a half-hour show. So I've just given you a glimpse of what this world has to offer, and the amount of lives that it's touched and been a part of. And before Sam drags me off on this adventure through mountains and wherever he drags me, I just have to say, it's an incredible series, and the cultural impact has been so significant that it has to be one of the most culturally iconic series of all time.
Dude, come on, have you been doing nothing? I already called the council, we gotta go.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah, what do you want?
Dude, come on, I called the council. Why are you just sitting here reading Harry Potter?
Yeah, I heard you called the council. I countermanded it.
Why would you do that?
If you think we're actually going to get the entire crew together just for one field shoot, you're nuts.
Why won't you let me have the crew?
We already ask enough of the crew as it is. I'm not going to ask them to do even more, particularly not however long your field adventure is going to be.
Well, I kind of need everyone. We're dealing with the Ring of Power here.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea that you really like Lord of the Rings. I mean, I really like Lord of the Rings too. But I'm not going to let you call the crew together just to do some kind of Council of Elrond, you have my axe bit, and go, hey, everybody, come work for an extra whole day on the field shoot for however long that takes so that I can do a gag about Lord of the Rings. I'm not doing it.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the idea, but like...
Yeah, I'm not going to let you call the whole crew together for one field shoot.
Dude, I got the one ring right here.
Yeah, where'd you even get that, by the way?
Oh, I got it off eBay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what am I supposed to do? Just me and Jacob handle it ourselves?
Yeah, actually, that sounds like a great idea. Why don't you guys just handle it yourselves?
You know what? Fine. We're going to do this. Well, we have plenty of time over our hands to start talking about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we do. We really do. What should we talk about?
You know, there's a lot to talk about. What about, like, talking about the world building of Lord of the Rings?
It's a great idea.
Yeah?
Well, first of all, we could say it's huge.
Yeah?
I mean,
It's pretty big.
There are few made-up universes that have more in it than Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have languages, there's food. But they actually take time in the movies to sit down and have meals.
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of a rare thing.
Yeah, we don't really see that very often. Like, it's actually an occurring theme in the movies that, like, they really took the time to plan out meals. You know, and then
That's very unique, I feel, to Lord of the Rings. I don't see very
Yeah.
often where, like, they're on an adventure and then all of a sudden they stop and start making some potatoes and stuff like that. It's not something that happens very often, and that's kind of a testament to how much detail was put into it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you think about it, there's a lot of different types of creatures that live in Middle-earth, and they all have their own developed languages. Like, even the dwarves, who are one of the more neglected of Tolkien's creations, have a full developed language and kind of history and line of people, and it's actually quite impressive.
Right, and it's not just something that, like, he didn't make a human culture and change it a little bit. He actually created full cultures and societies with their own ways and traditions and their own languages, and like he actually made up full languages like Elvish and Dwarvish and all of these languages that he used in the books. And it's kind of incredible.
He really paid a lot of attention to each individual creature and their respective tendencies, because hobbits are highly developed, of course, because they're one of the main focuses of Lord of the Rings, and elves, I think, are the most developed out of anything, because I feel like he loved those elves more than anything else.
Who doesn't love some elves?
I mean, there's some definite biases towards elves in Lord of the Rings, like, oh no, dwarves can't be on the planet first, I have to have my elves be there. Yeah, whatever, dwarves are better.
Right, but okay, so we're talking about the planet, like, okay, Middle Earth has multiple maps, right,
Yeah.
of different time periods. Like, what other authors do we really see that have actually made chronological time scales for their stories in such depth?
Yeah, and there's so much detail put into naming conventions of things too. Like, everything has a name. If you look at the map, there's a name for everything, which is absolutely crazy. And everything's so big that it's just wild and crazy to think about the journey going through all that kind of stuff, and then you can actually track exactly how that goes.
Right. Well, and then we don't just have the Lord of the Rings books, right? We have the Hobbit books as well. Oh, the book and then the movies, and then we have the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Right, and that, I've read a dictionary. A dictionary is dense, but the Silmarillion, wow, that is a piece of literature that is so dense and packed with knowledge that, like, it just makes the world that much stronger, I think. I mean, it is expansive.
Another aspect of the world building is the creatures of the darkness. They also got a lot of development. While they have less, probably more than anything else actually, they still are really interesting to, like, kind of talk about and learn about, because, like, the Balrog, you know, that thing is super cool. And he added all these things with a kind of softer magic system, because he wanted to leave that kind of mystical aspect of it, is what I feel it is. And it's more of a spiritual.
Right, the magic system is really beautiful, and of course we see a lot of characters
Gandalf.
specifically Gandalf,
Yeah.
love him, but we see him, like, using this magic, but it's not a predominant force in the story still, right? Even though this world has magic, it's not abused, it's not everywhere. It's still, it has divinity. It is sacred still.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the beauty in this world, is that, you know, there is magic, and it is sacred, so it doesn't overpower the story. So you're still able to have the story of the hobbits.
Yeah.
You're still able to have these other societies and cultures that have developed without this strong influence, and they have their own ways.
My favorite story is about the dwarves, personally.
Love
I'm a
the
big
dwarves.
fan of the Hobbit, so, you know, the line of Durin's pretty freaking sick, so.
Yeah. Well, the dwarves do make a great part of the story, and I think they complement the rest of the world as well. Are we headed the right direction?
Yeah, I think we're still headed the right direction.
Okay.
Anyways, that's kind of all about the world building I'm looking forward to, but
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Yeah.
Hey, check this out.
Yeah, that's a nice log.
Whew. Looks like I'm gonna spot it. I need to have a nice rest. Oh. Man, we should probably take a break. It's getting dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we can get back going talking about Lord of the Rings when it gets to early morning.
I agree.
Whew.
To generations from around the world.
Ability to play their own game.
That polar front coming straight down.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, how about the books and the movies? The difference between them.
Okay.
Which ones do you like more?
Well, personally, I'm a big fan of the movies, and this is probably a controversial opinion, but I think the movies are actually better than the books.
I mean,
I mean,
I'm going to disagree. I think the books are better.
let me put it this way. The movies created a visualization of what the books were doing. The books established all this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think the books are still great, but the movies said it in a way that was easily consumable and more fun-paced, and it wasn't as how do I put this, boring long as the books. Because the books have a lot of stuff where they're just walking. Oh look, tree. Let's walk.
But
continue.
I think it's part of the beauty of the books, right? Because the books, you truly get that sense of depth and that length, and there's so much detail that's in the books that can't be put into the movies.
Tons of detail, good for like D&D, but like...
Don't get me wrong, the movies are great, but I think that when it comes to the storyline of the characters, the books are better because they have more grit in them.
Oh no, like, okay, you just said the storyline of the characters. So if the books were better than the movies at portraying the storyline of the characters, then there wouldn't be as much random stuff about that log and its history. If the movies accomplish the goal of the storyline of the characters because it's driven by the characters, the book has so much information. It's a wonderful thing. There's still so much details about every person and everything, but it's so much detail about every person and everything. The movies are just about the people and some of the things.
True, but in the movies, we do have multiple chapters that are cut out.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't need a whole Tom Bombadil singing sequence.
Okay. I mean, I'll concede you that the books are long, but I still think they're great.
And also, I feel like it's kind of not as big of a punch that Saruman just goes to Hobbiton and just, burns everything down. I mean, sure, there's like some anti-industrial like tones in there and stuff, but in the movies, it's much more of a fun conclusion that it's over. They don't have to keep going. It's more of a, we completed this difficult task and ended this journey. And now in the books, it's just like, oh yeah, let's come back and do it again. It's like, no, I don't want to, like poor characters having to do that. That's kind of,
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that the books are great, and the movies are great, and they both tell very good stories.
I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah.
All right, we should probably get moving again.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to this learning hour. With me today I have Emma, and I'm going to teach her how to make some lambus bread. Lambus bread is an elven recipe that was heavily featured in The Lord of the Rings, as was their main source of food as the hobbits traveled to Mordor. Now, lambus bread was normally made from a flour derived from the nut of the malorn tree, but since we don't have that, because this is the real world, we have flour and some other ingredients to make the bread happen. So the first step would be to turn your oven on to 425 degrees. Do you want to do that, Emma? Fantastic. So while that oven's warming up, I'll explain the ingredients that we have. So we have 2.5 cups of just regular baking flour. We've got a tablespoon of baking powder. We've got a 1/4 tablespoon of salt. We've got 1/2 cup of butter, a 1/2 teaspoon honey, but that's a little bit more because honey's sticky, so you want a little extra. And then we've got a tablespoon of cinnamon, 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar, 2/3 cup heavy whipping cream, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is mix those dry ingredients, the flour, the baking powder, and the salt. Now the second step after mixing your first 3 dry ingredients together would be adding your 1/2 cup of butter, and the best way to do that is with a hand mixer to make sure that the mixture gets well homogenized and that you're looking for little tiny crumbs. You want it to kind of bead, not stick to each other. Now after your butter has been blended into that mix, you're going to want to take your brown sugar and your cinnamon and mix those in there as well. What it's going to do is add that sweetness and part of that flavor.
What do you do if that's not sweet enough?
Then I would add a little bit more brown sugar, or you could always add a little more honey. After your brown sugar and cinnamon's been mixed in there, what you're going to want to do is add your heavy whipping cream, your vanilla, and your honey. Now there's 2 ways to mix that in. You can either mix it in with a pair of forks or by hand, and you're going to mix that until a nice dough forms. And that dough shouldn't really stick to anything. It should really form to this nice solid dough. So now that we have our dough, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on our cutting board here, and we're just gonna sprinkle a little flour out here, just to make sure it doesn't stick. So go ahead and take the dough and let's put it on the cutting board. Perfect. Look at that beautiful dough. Love it. I'm just gonna take this out of our way here. All right, I'm gonna give you this
Cool. Can you sprinkle some of that?
good old
onto
rolling
here?
pin. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
So, of course, I pull a little flour aside from the bag and put it in that for this purpose. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll the dough about a ½ inch thick, and then we're gonna cut it into 3-inch squares.
Cool.
So why don't you go ahead and roll that dough out. Oh, that's nice and sticky.
It is. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, you totally, I would totally would. Just brush the top of that a little.
Who's your daddy?
That
sounds real nice.
You sound real nice.
I'm gonna get a
Shall we
salad
measure halfing here for you?
if you want to get.
So I think what we should do is we start cutting it off into our squares here. So I have
Okay.
I have this baking sheet for us. I'm gonna put it on this other side of you here.
Okay.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut these into 3-inch squares. I brought a ruler. I don't know if you want one. You don't have to use a ruler for this, but it just makes nice squares.
It's for
So here's a
historical
knife for you.
accuracy.
What we're gonna do is I'd cut down the sides so we can,
Just
have a
make it
nice
square.
straight edge. Yeah. Perfect. And I just put that aside. We'll roll that back out so we
Reuse
can
it
use it
later.
for the next set. Perfect.
Do the top too.
Yeah. Love it. Great. I am excited. This dough looks really nice and clean.
Cool.
So that looks pretty good. Do you want to use a ruler?
Sure.
Why not? All right, we got inches here. Oh, look
Oh,
at
that's
that.
exactly
That's a beautiful
6.
6 inches.
Oh my goodness.
And then we've got 8 inches, so it looks like we get 2 squares in here.
Okay.
So you want to cut off that top.
Go right there.
Yeah.
Yoink.
Yeah, and then we can just cut that into squares.
I'm gonna weigh that.
Sounds
It's
great.
about half.
Yeah, that's about half.
What about that signature design you see in the movies? How
Right.
do you
So
get
what
that?
we're gonna do? Is I'm just gonna put this here. I'm actually gonna switch places with you here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put these on the cooking sheets here. And you want to, they don't really expand. They stay about that size, so we can put them pretty close together. And then what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to make that crisscross with you're gonna score them lightly
Okay.
with the knife. So you want to go about 1/4 of an inch into it. And how I would do it is I'd actually lay the knife flat on there, and then just do like a little forward back action. Yeah, and that's about perfect. And then just that nice shallow score. And that'll make it so that when you bake them, they rise up a little. I'd give a little more here. You actually want to cut the surface of that dough so they break off into those corners. Perfect. And then go ahead and do those for the other 4. Lovely. Beautiful. This is going to make some good bread. I'm excited. And our oven's on, and it's nice and warm at this point. So when you're baking something, you don't just want your oven to heat up to the temperature. You want it to sit there for a while, because then the oven has warmth that radiates throughout it. It gives you a better baking.
Cool.
Bakes more thoroughly. So let's go ahead and roll that dough out again. Here, I'll take this. And we'll make another set. We have a little bit of leftover dough. What you could do is you could use another sheet and make some more squares, or there's no egg in it, so it's completely edible.
Cool.
You could probably put it in the fridge for later, or just do it in your next batch.
Cool.
So why don't we go ahead and throw this in the oven? I'll leave that to you. My hands are just as oily as yours. We do have a timer set for 12 minutes here. That's how long you're supposed to bake it. And I would put it on the top rack of the oven. That'll help make sure it gets nice golden brown on the top, because that's what we're looking for, and not burnt on the bottom. So go ahead, let's throw in that oven. Perfect. And away we go. We'll see you in 12 minutes. These turned out beautifully. I mean, what great looking lambus bread. I'm excited. Are you?
I am. Pretty movie perfect.
Yeah.
And I've heard that one bite can fill the stomach of a man for an entire day.
How cool. Love that.
Wait, what?
Gabe, how many did you eat?
I don't know. I thought they were fair game.
And with that, let's get back to our adventure.
Ooh, water.
No. The cones, the ring it out. No. Get out of there.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't think of that sooner.
I know, right?
At least it's out of our hands.
Yeah, out of our hands.
Yeah, someone else will probably find it.
No, that's okay. That's not in our hands. That's the important part.
What if, like, Gollum finds it?
Yeah, well, no more dragging you on these adventures.
No promises.
Fine.
Well, that took a long time.
Yeah, that did. Why did you drag me on this adventure again?
You know, I thought it was a lot more important than it actually was. Turns out probably a ring that costs a penny on eBay isn't as important as you think it is. I think that I saw the metal start to like welt away at the end. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that that wasn't the one ring.
I'm 100% certain that wasn't the one ring.
We both said certain.
Certain?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Why do we both say that? Maybe.
It's a long adventure and we're exhausted.
Yeah, we're probably just
So,
tired.
Should we go home and sleep in our modern beds again?
I mean, that's a good idea. But like, this bench looks really comfy after like sleeping on a log.
I'm not sleeping on a bench with you.
Why not? We'd be warm.
You make a good point.
It's it's a pretty long hike back home.
Yeah, you're right.
I think I estimate like 2 or 3 days. So
Yeah, looks like the bench it is.
yeah, we kind of just walked up a hill, didn't we? We didn't really go very far.
Yeah, no, you led us up a hill. Let's make that very clear.
I mean, I suppose that's true, but at the same time, it was kind of like an equal thing. And we, I mean, our crew should have been here, but they.
Well, our producer should have told us it was dumb and told us not to do this.
Yeah, our producer's really terrible. I think
Yeah.
I just got beeped out. That was weird. That was really weird. Did you hear that? It like went, like right as I was talking.
Yeah,
That was
weird.
interesting. I feel like a little bit claustrophobic right now. I feel like something's getting closer to us.
Yeah, it's a strange sensation.
It's freaking me out,
I really
man.
don't know what's going on, and I don't
It's
like it.
freaking me out, man.
I'm feeling boxed in.
Yeah, I think we should get out of here. I feel like we're being watched by the eye.
Yeah, I feel
Maybe
like
that ring was the ring.
I feel like I'm being framed.
We totally should have burned it. We shouldn't have just left it on the dirt hill.
I hate you.
Okay, let's get out of here.